Hi, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Steph.
I'm May.
I'm Toa.
And I'm Mia.
And we're going to talk to you about our GLP project.
For our project, we chose to compare domestic and international students. We did this because when the Shumani students first arrived and we were finding out that there were all sorts of differences between us, that it would be really interesting to explore that and to talk to other MSU students and see what their perspectives were on that.
We predicted that the international students, especially Chinese students, know more about Japan than domestic students.
And we were also a little bit worried about how maybe the international or domestic students would react to us having them be a part of our survey. So we made sure to be very careful with our choice of words and how we had a lot of patience with them, especially with the international students. But we had May and Toa to help us out with that.
We interviewed international and domestic students. The chart shows a comparison of international and domestic Michigan State students and what they know about famous people. We see that domestic people know more about famous people than international students do. There are two people that are domestic students that sit on a yoke, and the international student all said different famous Japanese people.
The food category of the chart, it shows that international students knew a little bit more about the food than the domestic students did. The main food that separated the two were the octopus balls, because here we haven't been as exposed to that food at all. But food was one of the highest percentages of our domestic on the chart, because in the Japanese culture, that is what we are exposed to the most, but still get mixed up with other Asian cultures, unlike international students. We weren't very surprised by this outcome, considering the main answer to the question, what is the first thing you think of when you hear Japan, was sushi from out of all of the domestic students.
When it comes to places to visit in Japan, we were not surprised at all of the international students' answers versus the domestic students. The only place that the domestic students guessed was Mount Fuji, but the international students had many more opinions and places that were significant to them in Japan.
As shown in the chart, the international students that we interviewed knew more about the type of government that Japan has compared to the domestic students that we interviewed. When we were interviewing the domestic students and asked them what type of government Japan has, they kind of looked up at us for direction as to what this question means. The domestic students really had no idea what type of government Japan has. I was not very surprised by this, but the international students did not know a whole lot more than the domestic students, which I was surprised by. Since most of the international students we interviewed were Chinese, I figured they would know more about Japan since they live closer to it and are more exposed to what goes on there.
We graded each interview out of 40 points and calculated them to find the average overall score for both the international and domestic students. We noticed that the international students knew a little bit more about Japan overall, and the average of the international students' interviews were 66.25%, and the domestic student score was 56.67%.
The second person that we interviewed was a girl named Yuki, and Toa and May realized that she could speak Japanese, and they have a little bit to say about her.
She can speak English and Chinese and Japanese. We were very surprised. We went to Korean restaurant together.
And we talked about the differences between China and Japan. We noticed that we have the similar words. For example, shojiki. Shojiki means truly and honestly. Sounds like sounds like, and it was interesting for us.
We've had so much fun working with May and Toa.
And we've seen the benefits of learning about different cultures, especially with us all becoming teachers, well, almost all of us, and see how we can use it in our future classrooms.
Even though I'm not going to be a teacher, I've definitely learned that being culturally aware is important and very valuable.
I can spread my world by knowing other cultures.
I got new values and different experiences with American culture.
It's going to be really fun to see how these different cultures affect all of our lives, and we got some new friends out of it as well.
Woohoo!
Yes.